Liver King. Everybody, Liver King got popped. He got popped, son. Now, I feel a lot of ways about this. No, I've been very open about my use of performance-enhancing drugs, testosterone replacement therapy, hormone replacement therapy, whatever you want to call it, TRT, HRT, PEDs, yeah, all the things, all the acronyms. We can do this all day long. I'm very clear about this and my support of this if you have your shit dialed in. Now, Liver King, for those of you who don't know, he is somebody who's amassed a humongous social media following in the past 2 years, I think. He went from 0 to like 1 million followers in less than a year. So, I mean, he went hard in the paint. And during that time of him growing and being on some of the most successful, I mean, Logan Paul's podcast, he never made it to Rogan because I think Rogan saw him as a charlatan from the beginning, but Rogan has had some run-ins with some charlatans, so I think he has a little bit better of a barometer for that than most. Anyways, he was on these huge podcasts preaching his 9 ancestral tenets and kind of promising that if you live this way, you'll look like him in a very weird way, which is very 90s supplement company, right? Like, do this and you'll look like Jay Cutler. And it's like, no, dude, no. like take 10 years off your life and you'll look like Jay Cutler. Like, Jay Cutler is a freak of nature on top of the fact that he's on copious amounts of gear. Right. And for those of us who have experience in strength, fitness, aesthetics, lifting, whatever it is, like, it's very clear that what he has is not achievable in a natural state. It was very clear. So whenever I heard him over and over again deny his use of performance enhancing drugs and things outside of his ancestral tenets, I never even bought the shit. I was like, dude, I look at this guy and I'm like, no, he's full of shit. It doesn't take a genius. And it was so blatant that he was just rubbing our faces in. That's what it felt like. It's like anybody it's like he's just rubbing your face in it, blatantly lying to your face, which frustrates me as somebody who really actually thinks some of the companies he's involved in are really great. I think eating liver is great for you. I think eating heart is one of the best things. Get yourself some beef heart, learn how to cook it. It's fantastic, or eat it raw if you want. But get yourself that. If you ever kill wild game, always take the heart, always take the liver, take the kidneys if you can, take the lungs if you can, like getting as much of that as you can. If you don't eat it, feed it to your dogs. That's what I do. I'll try new things all the time. Take the bones with you. I hate when people bone out wild game. Take the bones, get that bone marrow. I love all of this shit. And what frustrates me about Liver King, I think his name is Brian. Brian over here, is that he by doing this thing that he's done, this blatant lie that he's getting caught in here, he's proving himself as a fraud and a charlatan, but also he's devaluing a movement that is really positive, right? This focus on regenerative agriculture, eating high quality meats, right? Utilizing the whole animal, right? The full cycle of life, being in touch with the earth. These are really important things. And this roided out dipshit went and did this thing, which now has me so pissed off. Now, I will address this. My buddy Johnny Fresh, he said, and Johnny, I know you feel strongly about this, that there was a confidentiality between him and the guy that he was speaking to, the coach he was speaking to about his drug use, that shouldn't have been violated and released in this kind of whistleblower account. And while I do agree for most things, when you are a fucking fraud, I think it's in the public good for that to be leaked out, in the same way I feel about Snowden and Assange. Like, I feel the same way. I think he was defrauding people and he needed to be caught. I think he was only going to do more damage as time went on to a movement that me and many people that I care about a ton. So when we look at this, let's break this down. Let's look at his ancestral tenets here. And let's just see like what this is. This is very simple, right? Sleep, eat, move, shield, connect, cold, sun, fight, bond. This is basic shit, right? And when you have something like this, is one thing that's really interesting, and you'll see this a lot. I've worked for people that kind of do this, when it's like there are certain kind of universal truths, right? Like real high return on investment things you can do with your life. Good sleep, quality food, getting your feet in the dirt, moving around, right? Learning how to defend yourself, connecting with other people. Cold stimulation, right? Heat, vitamin D from the sun, fight, bond, like connection. Like, these are all really important things you can learn to do. And there's something in that. There's tangible growth. There's a greater sense of peace, and like all these things that are also kind of intangible. It's wild. And these are really things that when you have a message that is so straightforward and relatively unexceptional, these 9 ancestral tenets are kind of just normal good ideas, not some kind of hack. It's just like, this is good, a good way to live life. You have to then attach a freak show to that to bring attention to this, right? To separate itself. And he also did this thing where he had primals and subprimals. He would basically create this like cult-like behavior, this like primal behavior versus like it's us versus them, which is another way to hack into putting yourself into this category of charlatan, right? Really manipulating people. It's us, it's them. Religion does the same thing. Kind of taking that religious us versus them mentality and applying it to health and well-being. This happens all the time. This is not the first time this has happened. You'll see this around. You look around the self-help community, you'll find it all over the goddamn place. I can promise you that. So he has these 9 tenets and he lied so much. Now, if it would have come out that he was doing a little bit of human growth hormone or TRT or something like that, that's one thing. This mother was taking DECA, test, IGH1, peptides. I think he was getting on Winstrol. Winstrol, it's for the Liver King. Winstrol will kill your liver, right? This mother, not only, like, I looked at human growth hormone. Right? I would love to do HGH. I would love pharmaceutical grade HGH. It is so expensive. Now, I'm not Liver King, so I can't spend $12,000 a month on my PEDs, right? I get my shit from a good doctor. It's an 80-20 testcipionate and test prop blend. I love it. It's fantastic. It's low dose. It's great for me, right? And if he was doing something like that or a little bit of HGH, he'd be like, hey, man, you got to do what you got to do. You're traveling, you're training. I get it, man. You also didn't have to lie about it because no one really would have given a shit because it's so blatantly obvious. But now you've pissed everybody off because you insulted our intelligence by lying to our faces for years now. So I want to bring this compilation. This is from Derek at More Plates, More Dates. He put this compilation together of all the times that he has lied on these huge podcasts, and we'll break this down.
Manicured Dan.
Liver King claims he has never used steroids or any performance-enhancing drugs to achieve his physique, and this is ultimately what gets him the most scrutiny, but is also one of the reasons he's so viral. If he didn't throw it in people's faces as much as he does, he probably wouldn't get the heat that he does, but he often pokes fun at those who speculated about it and can be generally condescending.
Liver King here. A bunch of primals keep asking if Liver King is natty or not. I decided to really face this head on and show you my stack. I stack liver and bone marrow every day. I stack the sun and the earth every day. I stack blood-burning workouts twice a day, every day. And if you stack the 9 ancestral tenets, you too can express your most dominant form. And by the way, this was my cameraman idea, so tip of the hat to him. I don't even know where to get this stuff. But I will tell you this is filled with maple syrup. There's nothing better than that. Liver King out. It is time to put the rumors to rest. I just got my blood work done, and the doc is on his way to give me the results. Okay, Liver King, I got your blood results. Show him, don't tell him, doc. Okay, we did find something unusual about your blood. Aha! I knew it! Primal!
Is Liver King natty? That's what he said.
Yeah.
I think he was like TikTok age. They say natty.
Yeah, well, first thing I'm now you're giving me a sidetrack, but I'll say this. Do you think if I was on steroids, I would have these appendages down here, these legs?
Have legs?
Do you see how fucking little my legs are? You know,
they're pretty.
Oh, pretty big? Okay, well, let me go on here. Here's the thing. When I was in college, I weighed 175 pounds and I was single-digit body fat. I started working out about 8 or 9 years old. I had already been working out for, 10 or 12 years. So now I'm 45 and I've gained less than 1 pound a year over 25 years. Less than 1 pound a year. So this is what I say to people that make this accusation. If you don't believe this is possible, then I suggest that you take that self-limiting belief, you put that shit in a box and you bury that next to all your embarrassing shit and don't open your mouth about it. Let that live with you.
The doubling down, tripling down, quadrupling down, like this guy does not really have an off switch when it comes to leaning into this. It irritates a lot of people because he does not produce any evidence to the contrary. And he also doesn't get blood work apparently to track his health because he's so confident in his ancestral lifestyle that he believes it to be essentially unnecessary.
Are there actual hard medical downfalls or shortcomings to this diet? Higher cholesterol, are there things that you have to actively do to combat those?
Yeah, so we look at this here. Now, let's keep in mind, okay, we're not going to talk about cholesterol today because this is a whole thing. It's like, when you look at this man, it's abundantly obvious he's on gear. Now, Here's what I will say. I bet him before he was on gear. Now, if he started in college, he's been doing it his whole life, that's a different conversation. But I bet he was fit as shit. He's genetically superior, and he puts in a ton of work. I will say this right now. They will not do the work for you. I don't give a shit how many PEDs you're on. They will not do the work for you. They might make marginal differences in day of type of stuff if you're doing a competition, shit like that. And they will make a huge difference as far as what you're able to do and how you're able to recover and how you're able to train. That being said, they don't do the work, right? They make it sometimes possible for you to do more work, which is fun. And from my experience, it's kind of how I went. It went from like, oh, I could train 4 hours a day now, right? It was a different experience, and I actually loved that about it. It's kind of one of the most cognitively addicting substances I've ever tried in my life. But when you look at him, it's so clear. But what he's preaching makes so much sense, right? Now, are you going to look like that doing what he does, like 2 CrossFit workouts a day, a little bit of conjugate method from Westside, walks in? It's like, no, but if you get a good workout in the morning, walk, watch the sun come up, get sun on your skin, get your feet in the dirt, are you going to live a better life? Yes. But now those two are associated with one another, right? You have this movement, which is really positive, fantastic, attached to a guy who's a fraud. Right? Who was lying to people. And no one would have cared that you were on shit. You could have just not talked about it. Everyone would have known. Who is a good example of this? Who is someone that everyone loves? Who everyone loves? The most famous person on the planet with the most Instagram followers on the planet. I don't think it's Kardashian, by the way. Maybe it is. The Rock. You think The Rock is clean? Do you think The Rock isn't on a very similar stack to what our boy Liver King is here? And who gives a shit? What single person gives a shit? No one. Because he's The Rock. Just like no one would have cared because he's the Liver King, man. People understand that that aesthetic isn't really achievable with a healthy life, like a normal, healthy life. That kind of aesthetic comes with taking years off your life, and that's okay because that's your free choice to do so. But you're dragging a really positive movement down with you. And now we have people all in that movement, right? Carnivore MD, Paul was his name, having to distance themselves. And now people are going to have to start shitting on you to save the movement, and they should. No one should come to your defense, dude, because you rubbed our faces in it. Now, I will say this too. If I looked at his hormones, and Derek is way better at this. Go follow More Plates, More Dates if you're curious about this kind of stuff. If you look at this, and you saw his stuff, and he was doing a little TRT, little growth hormone here and there, right? Like what a lot of us would love to do. It is because he's 45, keeping his levels normal, so keep him high, so he can still perform at the level he wants. He's got a responsibility, he's got a family, he's got a job, right? That requires him to look a certain way and perform in a certain way. If you saw that, you go, okay, I get that, right? That's fine. This motherfucker was doing 10 units of growth hormone, right? Pharmaceutical grade growth hormone, 10 units a day. If I were to take growth hormone, I'd be in that 1 to 0.5 units a day. And the one time that I was prescribed growth hormone, but I couldn't afford it because it's $1,000 a month, it was 1 unit every other day. This dude is on 10 units a day and is obsessed about his back fat, right? So it's not about, hey, this physique, this body is actually the consequence of me living a full life. The dude is tripping balls about his love handles, man. That's what he's getting into in these emails. He's freaking out and willing to spend $5,000 more a month on growth hormone to get rid of his love handles, dude. What about that is ancestral? What about that reflects what you're preaching? It doesn't. It's the same thing as Joel Osteen, right? It's like he's a mega preacher for a movement that he's not. And he was also taking 10 grams of creatine a day, 120 grams of dextrose a day. Dextrose is straight sugar. I used to take dextrose post-workout, 200 grams, right? Because I was in a strength gaining phase. I was taking 300 grams of dextrose a day, 100 after my first workout, my aerobic session, and 200 after my strength training sessions. That's a shit ton of sugar. That's what it is. It's powdered sugar. That's not part of an ancestral. You don't put that on, you don't sprinkle that on your bone marrow. What are we doing here? Right? So you're a fraud, man. And people snuffed this stuff out a long time ago. It's different if you're Lance Armstrong, but even then, Lance Armstrong could have been like, yeah, I'm on shit, and so is everybody else, and come out and said that, and people would have less hatred than they do about his lies and the Nike campaign. He just lied so much. That's what people are upset about. It's the deceit. Now, if you're Barry Bonds and those guys, that's a different conversation because they were They were doing the same as everybody else and winning. And it's like, I don't know if they needed to come out. I don't think they were ready for it at the time. At that time, I don't think the world was ready to watch our heroes fall in that way. And they became villains. Them doing performance-enhancing drugs to perform for us is doing us a service. They're putting their lives and bodies second to perform for us. And then we make villains out of them. They're paying the price to perform for us, and we're making villains out of them. We weren't ready for that in the 90s and 2000s, right? Once Lance Armstrong happened and we realized how many people were doping, the psyche shifted. And now it's like, hey, whatever, man. It's whatever. And he could have been like, yeah, here's me before PEDs. Here's where I am now. And even been open about his stack. I don't think people would be upset about it at all. I don't think people would be upset about it one bit. I think he still would have made a shit ton of money. And he would have been great. But he didn't. He lied. Now, I want to say, just for the future, for you, those of you out there who maybe don't have as much experience, because here's the problem. It's not that adults were falling for this, because if you were, come on, dude. Like, if you fell for this, you need to reevaluate yourself. But kids, they don't know. Like 15, 16-year-old kids, they don't know. And they find out this is happening, and they start taking shit when they're too young, right? You shouldn't take that shit till you're at least in your late 20s, my opinion. Unless you're some kind of performance athlete that needs it for some reason. But this aesthetic that Liver King has here is not attainable naturally, right? I know people who look very similar, small legs too. Also my height, used to be a UFC fighter, has a similar aesthetic, similar chest. That does not happen naturally. Okay. And people will be like, well, he looks very similar to Rich Froning. He won the CrossFit Games a bunch of times. That aesthetic is not natural. Rich Froning never talked about it. And if he did, he lied. But the dude wasn't clean. I'm sorry to tell you guys that. Don't want to burst your bubble, right? It's obvious. I can take every dollar I have and put it on. That motherfucker was juicing, just like everybody else. Like everybody else. He was still the best. But if you talk about the aesthetic, the way a healthy body looks that follows the ancestral tenets that he talks about, right? Somebody who gets their feet in the dirt, gets outside, that aesthetic is very distinct. And that aesthetic is very well reflected in Paul, Carnivore MD. If you're just listening, go check it out. This guy looks like now I would be surprised if he was on a little bit of test and a little bit of growth hormone, right? But a little bit, not a stack, not a mad stack, right? So when we look at Paul here, like, yeah, that guy's probably just doing what he says he's doing, right? Maybe a little T, maybe a little growth, no big deal. But he looks reasonable. It looks realistic, right? And there's not really that much of an incentive to lie because his values are lived out. And I know Paul, these guys who asked him if he was on shit, knew he was on shit, right? Anyone who interviewed him, Carnivore MD included, did not push him like they should have. If he said he was clean, you should have said, bullshit, dude. Bullshit. And your business partners with the guy. Paul should have done more. Carnivore MD should have done more. It's not his, but then again, it's not his responsibility to out somebody, right? But you got to have a personal conversation being like, dude, this is going to blow up in your face. And it did. And it did. So that's the Liver King, guys. Weird times. But rough day for the primals, I guess. I don't know who was buying it, but I had to bring it up here because this is just something I feel like, God damn it, it pisses me off that this guy is so pompous that he'll just drag this message down with him. So yeah, there you go. There's your bravery and courage, all this other bullshit that you talk about. The rise of masculinity. F yourself, dude. Like you hurt something that was bigger than you out of greed. That's it. You damaged something that was bigger than you, Brian, out of greed. And that sucks for more people than just you. You'll be fine. You're still rich. But people now have to defend a movement that's bigger and better than you because of your actions, bro. I hope you're having a great day. You know what would make my day really, really good? Is if you subscribe to this channel, turn on post notifications, and like this video. It would mean a lot to me, and it would really help us overcome the content moderation that seems to have a bit of an influence on who sees our videos, when, where, and why. Make your day better, make my day better, and let's just move forward together.